Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion plays the Binding of Isaac AFTERBIRTH Plus. We finally got ourselves back to 15 wins in a row. It's 8:25 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm feeling good. 4ZB9 GRDP. No thank you. We have Leprosy. It's a disease you don't hear too much about these days. But I always am wary of saying, like, oh, it's, you know, that's a disease from yesteryear. I'm sure there's still leprosy, right? What even causes leprosy? Like, I don't know, I think I've just had it confused with scurvy, like, my whole life. Scurvy is, like, a vitamin C deficiency that mostly afflicts people at sea who do not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and then also people in the first world who do have access to fresh fruits and vegetables but don't necessarily enjoy the way they taste. That's the way I understand scurvy. What about leprosy? Leprosy must be caused by some kind of bacteria, right? Hold on. Leprosy. I gotta know. It's a chronic progressive bacterial infection caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium leprae. Alright. I didn't know. Well, I mean, I never really thought of it. It's one of those things like you ever worry that, well, worry is maybe a strong word, but you ever realize, which is just a much stronger and scarier word in this circumstance, people are always concerned about, I would say overly concerned about things like, you know, scurvy, leprosy. Like, people will literally be like, I drink a glass of orange juice every single day to prevent scurvy, but, like, nobody really cares at all about, like, heart disease and strokes, you know, until they happen. Like, people will literally be like, oh, I'm worried about, you know, flesh-eating bacteria, so I take, you know, blah blah supplement. I'm clearly making this up, so this is not a literal situation, even though I said the word literally. But people will, like, inoculate themselves against, like, things that are pretty rare to happen. Not to say that, you know, the vaccine is bad in the first place, because quite the opposite. Whatever they got, just shoot me with it. I'm ready. If they could inoculate me against heart disease, I'd take that in a heartbeat, dude. I.e. 1/135th of a second, but, you know, if you're like, oh, I take zinc because I want to avoid the risk of flesh-eating bacteria, people are like, that's wise, that's a smart idea. If you eat a salad instead of french fries, people are like, oh, get over yourself. Live a little. You know, we're all gonna die someday. You think you're better than me just because you're eating lettuce? It's crazy, dude. I'm not even saying, like, I'm exempt from it. I'm in this, you know, the same boat. Worry about things like, you know, sometimes when you're around in Vancouver, there'll be, like, a lot of crows. Like, worried about a crow attack. Then I'll go to McDonald's and eat 10 chicken McNuggets. What do you think's more likely to take you down? A crow attack? Or, you know, progressive arteriosclerosis and hardening of the arteries? I mean, when you're in the crow area, it's probably, like, the crows. As soon as you get out of the crow area, you know, you gotta take care of yourself. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to make any enemies here. Anyway, I will say, you know, it's November. I don't know if we get the same flu shot as the rest of the world. I can only give you my anecdotal experience. I had the flu shot this year, and, you know, which I think is responsible. I think I mentioned it, but, like, we had a pediatrics... Well, we had an appointment for our baby with our general practitioner, our family doctor, and, I just want to see if maybe, just maybe, we could go back and get Incubus here, because it is really good. Oh, well. She was like, well, you're here, do you want the flu shot? And I always feel bad for, like, because my experience getting the flu shot is that they always, you know, I feel bad that the doctors and pharmacists have to be, like, salespeople. Like, it reminds me of, like, telemarketers. They're trying to, like, walk through a list of, like, objections you might have, and I'm like, just shoot me up, I'm ready. No thank you, but that is good, but it's not what I want. But I think I will check out our curse room here. But if you were worried about getting the flu shot, my anecdotal experience with the flu shot this year a 1 out of 10 sore arm, followed by absolutely no other side effects. So you know, if that was holding you back, then by all means, I would encourage you to give it a try. It was always funny to me. People would... Here's a story that I'm sure everybody has heard before, and some of you may have even told it before. I'm going to push back on it slightly, okay? I got the flu shot, but then, like, I got sick, and it was worse than the flu. So what's the point? Couple of things. One is, I would never suggest that it's worth feeling bad, necessarily, like, for a long period of time in order to prevent other people from feeling bad. But even if it did give you flu-like symptoms, you know, it can still be useful to protect, you know, society's most vulnerable people from the effects of the actual illness. And then the secondary thing, I know that some people are going to push back on this, but I don't know. I've just never seen the evidence for myself. Like, people, I've had the flu shot before and gotten, like, a headache and, like, a really light fever that passed in less than a day. Maybe even, like, a little sore throat or sniffles or something like that. Like a mimic of the flu symptoms. But that doesn't mean, like, that's not as bad as the flu. Like, every time I've ever had the flu, you know, you're sweating, you're defecating at a prodigious pace, you might be vomiting, you got a high fever, it's hard to sleep, but yet you can't do anything else. We don't really want marked yet, but we may reconsider. Just getting a headache and, like, a little fever, that's not the flu, okay? Don't flatter yourself. That's anti-science propaganda. I don't know if they, I mean, if it actually gave, if somebody had the flu shot, and then it gave them, like, 4 days of flu-like symptoms, and they had to take time off from work, then I would be like, you know what? You don't have to get it. Everybody else can get it so that you don't have to get it. I think that's a good enough reason, quite frankly. But I don't buy it. I don't know. I have an innate distrust of people when they describe how they're feeling, which I think would make me a pretty terrible doctor. Like, I think I would make a good surgeon. Then I know that's very flattering of me to say, I suppose, towards myself. Just because, like, a surgeon, it feels like almost you're like a debugger, right? You're like, what's wrong with this? But, you know, you got a freaking bottle cap in here, buddy. Yoink. All right, that'll be $1 million, please. Doesn't seem that hard. Being a doctor and having to listen to people self-describe their own symptoms, I don't think I would have the best bedside manner, quite frankly. Like, when people describe their pain, I think if they were like, oh, it's like a 9, I would be like, oh, really? Because, like, on the scale here, a 9 is having, like, a big boulder fall on your leg. So would you say that, you know, the pain that you have right now is like the pain from a large boulder falling on your leg? Because if not, wouldn't you really say you're more on, like, the 4 or 5 on the scale here? Like a little light frowny face sort of situation? I think people... This is not to say, like, you know... Nobody has problems. I'm just saying I think people tend to over-exaggerate sometimes for their own benefit, you know, for a little bit of attention. Now, when people... The flip side is that, you know, whenever people say, like, you know, they have, like, a chronic fatigue or pain, I agree, or I believe them 100%, because I'm like, it seems like a really weird thing to kind of, like, lie about. Oh, I'm constantly in pain. Oh, be quiet. You just want to... No, I don't believe that they just want attention. But whenever somebody's like, I stubbed my toe and it's the worst pain I've ever felt, I'm like, man, I don't buy it. I don't believe you. I just don't. I'm sorry. Again, not a good doctor. Great. I think I would be a great astronaut, though. This feels like a little bit more like keep talking and nobody explodes, right? I'm gonna get blamed for bad bedside manner now of people that are like 35 years older than me. NL, I had a doctor who didn't believe my pain once and it led to... I'm not that guy, okay? I'm making a joke. In fact, if anything, you've just flattered me by taking my jokes so seriously. It makes me believe that I'm actually some kind of incredible comedian. I've weaved a tale that has provoked an emotional response. I'm not, don't confuse me with Dr. Kirkpatrick, you know? Dr. Kirkpatrick went to med school in 1962. I'm not responsible for what Dr. Kirkpatrick does or doesn't do. Had to think very hard to come up with a last name there. Anyway, this is the kind of anecdotes we get at 8 in the morning. It is still only 8:35 a.m. here. I know I've only been waking up early for like a month now, but I'm starting to think that everybody who wakes up after the hours of 8:35 a.m. is just lazy. Come on. Oh, you're just waking up? I've been up for 45 minutes, lazy bones. What have you been up to? It's crazy, the stuff people think they can get away with. Sleeping in? Sleeping in till 8:36? Oh, I remember what college was like. I will say, can I tell you, if I ever become, like, and it's pretty likely, maybe Harvard or Yale will take me, but if I ever become, like, the dean or the chancellor or the chairman of a university, I don't know what time, you know, if you're in college right now, I don't know what time your classes start. When I was in college, the earliest classes started at 8:30 a.m. I would ban that. I would not, I'm not Van Wilder. I'm not going to say classes can't start until like 11:30. But I think 9 is the earliest classes should begin. It's just my 2 cents, okay? 8:30 is just a little bit ridiculous. You're expecting people to get up. I know that it's in many ways it's a preparation for the real world, don't get me wrong. But, like, don't shoot the messenger on this one. It's just one man's opinion. It's easier to go to work than it is to go to school. That's my thoughts on that subject. I mean, I don't mean like the spiritual act. I think in that sense, it's probably easier to go to school than it is to go to work. I just mean from a mechanical standpoint. You know, if you've got like, you know, a 30-minute commute, you know, maybe you're on the bus, you just look at your phone. Or maybe you're in your car, you're on the highway. You know, you get on the same on-ramp, you get off the same off-ramp. All you gotta do is not crash into the car in front of you, right? It's not rocket science. Literally, you might be having an 8:30 a.m. lecture. That is literally rocket science. Now, you're not doing rocket science. You're merely learning about rocket science. But simultaneously, you know, I don't think it's reasonable to expect the human brain to be that absorbent at 8:30 in the morning. Now, admittedly, there's greater consequences to the drive than there is to the, you know, the being in the lecture. Like, if you fall asleep behind the wheel, that's much worse than if you fall asleep behind the wheel of, you know, well, behind the wheel of your desk. I'm just saying. I'm not saying we should completely reform the system. I'm merely suggesting that I think 9 or 9:30 is a more appropriate time. Like, college is messed up, dude. It actually worked well for me, but I have some sympathy for people who had, like, you know, more structured days. Like, you might have, like, a Monday where you start at 8:30, you have a 3-hour lecture that goes till 11:30, and then you have, like, you have a 3 to 4 p.m. class, and then, like, a 6 to 9 p.m. class. It's like a 13-hour day. You can do stuff in between, don't get me wrong. But, like, it's madness. I guess it's hard to schedule because everybody's taking different courses. So I guess what I'm suggesting is everybody should take the same course. It's called liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel, 101. I don't know. I got a lot of weird and bad takes today, apparently. Well, it is the day for it. Tuesday, November 3rd. I'm sympathetic, you know. I mean, I guess it's, what I was gonna say is, you know, also classes should not go longer. Like, they should not go later than, like, 5 or 6 p.m. But then I'm like, I'm pretty sure that that'll mean you have to start doing, like, a 12-day week. But we've all got to make sacrifices, okay? Wait a minute. Yeah, I think I want to take that. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. We have not been to our shop, but we also don't really care about our shop right now. I think we'd oh, we're already on an arcade floor. Hold up. I don't know, every once in a while, you just get something like very cursed that pops into your head. So what I just had, and it's apropos of nothing at all, but it's, why you coming home at 5 in the morning? Something's going on, are you Pickle Rick? So that's a reference, of course, to the classic viral video, Smell Yo, and it rhymes with Rick, only I didn't say Rick. Don't play me like a fool, cause that ain't cool. Something's going on, are you Pickle Rick? Wait a minute, hold up. Anyway, I can't get it out of my head, like a Kylie Minogue song. Every once in a while, I don't know. Just these intrusive thoughts. Like, some people talk about they have intrusive thoughts. Like, man, I'm driving my car. What if I just swerved into the oncoming lane right now? You know? I have sympathy for that. Instead, I get, like, weird song parodies that are just... They're not even meant to be good. That's the worst part. They're just meant to be, like, ironically bad. I wish I could explain it. This is actually a great time to be fighting greed. Something's going on. Are you Pickle Rick? I got nothing to say for myself. I got nothing to say in my own defense. I got nothing to say in my own offense. I think rather than play around to try to get the blood bag, we will just head down. Because this is enough money to buy something from the next floor. Like, this run should not be in question, but it is moderately spicy. I think the next floor is going to leave us with a lot of clarity. Like, for example, the right way to go. Which I admittedly should have figured out for myself, but hey, thank God this guy's not driving. Excuse me, I would just turn on the auto drive in the Polestar 2, and then I would just fall asleep in the back seat. I have a question about self-driving, okay? And I know that it's illegal, not self-driving or, you know, auto drive or whatever, but I have a hypothetical question for rhetorical purposes. And I'm not saying that to protect myself legally. I'm merely... Like, it's just an interesting thought experiment. Okay. Hear me out here. You're intoxicated. You're above the legal limit to drive. You've consumed too much ethanol-based beverage. This is an incredible room. If we could just get a single bomb. Or even just walk through the fire, because I think you can, but... you've got, you know, Elon's Tesla Roadster, okay? For some reason. Elon's not there, though. He can't drive you. He's too busy tweeting. Would you, legally speaking, whether or not they would charge you, like, the same way, just let's walk this through in a legal context. Legally speaking, would you get in more trouble driving home drunk, which you should not do, obviously. Like, I'm gonna say, that's one you don't even have to say you should not do. Just literally, like, don't do it. Like, whatever other option you have, including falling asleep in the bar toilet, do that instead. I'm not even gonna be like, I discourage it. I condemn it. So, but, again, this is for just rhetorical purposes. Would you get in more legal trouble for driving home drunk, or, and there's 3 options here, so please wait for me to finish. Driving home drunk in the driver's seat, sitting in the driver's seat, but letting auto drive you home, or sitting in the passenger seat or the back seat and letting auto drive you home. You see where I'm going with this one? It's a complicated situation. It is obviously heavily illegal to drive drunk. It is also, to some degree, I believe, at least an illegal act of reckless driving to use any kind of autopilot without maintaining supervision, right? Because they're not at that level yet. However, I guess what I'm saying is, like, look, legally speaking, you would probably get in more trouble let me rephrase, because this is a prickly discussion. I'm not worried about like the moral ramifications. It's just it's an interesting kind of like verbal battleground. I think you would still get charged with drunk driving even if you were in the back seat and letting auto drive you home, because I think most places, legally speaking, would still consider you to be the active driver in that situation. However, I'm just wondering if there isn't more of a case that you could be like, Your Honor, my client was absolutely hammered. I cannot deny that. However, we can't make a case that they were drunk driving. All they did was program the navigation and turn the autopilot on and then go take a snooze in the back. Now, reckless driving, sure, they should not have let auto drive unsupervised. That is an illegal act. But surely we can't charge them with impaired driving except on a technicality. I don't know. Look, I'm not a lawyer. And again, I really, like, drunk driving is one of those crimes that really, like, annoys me. And I was going to say something, I was going to use stronger verbiage, but Google DeepMind, I don't want to censor this video. Like, because it's just a crime of, like, laziness. That's what bothers me the most, is, like... So I'm not going to say it's worse than murder. Because that's, like... But it might be worse than, like, some manslaughters, to be honest. Because, you know, sometimes you're, like... You know, you don't set out to... I shouldn't say you, but you know what I mean. You know, the situation was not set out in a way for murder to take place, but, you know... Things happen, and all of a sudden, you know, we got in a street fight. The dude bumps his head on the concrete, you know? Accidents happen. They shouldn't, but, you know, this one did or whatever. But drunk driving is literally just like, I don't know, officer. I went to the bar in my car, and then I drank too much, and then I drove it. Like, there's literally, like... There's so many other options. Like, for example, go to the bar and don't drink so much, and then drive home. If you want to get hammered, what if you just went to the liquor store, bought some alcohol, drove home, and then drank it safely in the comfort of your own home? What if you called an Uber, and then, you know, when you woke up in the morning, you called an Uber to go back to the bar to pick up your car? You know, it's a crime of just laziness, is really what annoys me the most, on top of it being extremely reckless. That being said, you know, if you're asking me, would I rather somebody drive home drunk? And let's create the false dilemma. Would I rather somebody drove home actively drunk or let autopilot drive home while they were intoxicated? I guess at that point I gotta say I wish that they didn't put themselves in this situation, but I would feel safer if they just used the autopilot. That's my 2 cents. Now, I've got drunk driving, extremely not okay. You're a huge scumbag if you do it at all, and if you do it regularly, like, what is wrong with you? Like, that's just selfish and idiotic. I feel like I've done my responsible due diligence by saying that. I do want to say, though, every once in a while you'll hear about these stories, like, I felt bad. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere, maybe the Vancouver subreddit or something like that. This guy was like, you know, I was at my buddy's house for New Year's Eve, and I got too drunk. Obviously didn't want to drive home, so I, like, slept in my car. And then at, like, 4 a.m., the cops knocked on my door, and, like, my car door, and, let me out, please. We're like, hey, you know, have you had anything to drink tonight? And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm sleeping it off. Then they gave me a breathalyzer, and I was, like, over the legal limit, and they, you know, charged me with drunk driving. I'm like, that's not drunk driving. That's drunk sleeping. Don't get me wrong. I think anything you can do to minimize the effects of drunk driving is a positive thing. But is this really the intended effect of the legislation? Is that if you're drunk and you're asleep in your car, it's a crime? I know that apparently, like, the methodology or the reasoning behind it, and, you know, having been to university myself, I can relate to this, but not the driving part, but, you know, the next part of what I'm about to say. Sometimes maybe you're intoxicated at night, you wake up like 5 or 6 hours later and you assume that you're good, but actually you're not good. You know? You show up at your algebra class at 8:30 in the morning, and you're like, wait a minute, that X looks like a Y. So I can understand that, but the sleeping is not criminal. If they drive, then that's a crime. Well, I mean, assuming they're still over the legal limit. Then that's a crime. But if they're just, it's not a crime to be asleep in your car. I mean, I guess literally it is if this goes to pass, but it's one of those situations where I think a little nuance would go a long way. But I'm also trying not to be one of those guys that, like, bases all of his political opinions off of, like, one outlier story. Oh, really? Then what do you think about this story that happened 7 years ago where, like, one bad thing happened to somebody? Got to look at it from a broader sense. But I'm more interested in, like, it's the same kind of discussion as, like, when you have a self-driving car, what should the algorithm do? Should it prioritize the driver? Should it prioritize, the situation? If it has options getting into an accident, should it get into an accident that causes the least harm? Or should it get into an accident that protects the driver? Or, like, should it get into an accident that, judges who's at fault? Because, like, here's the thing. Imagine you're in this situation, okay? And I apologize, it's getting a little macabre. Imagine there is a bicycle. There's a bicycle. You're driving straight, okay? And it's highway speed. There's a bicycle. It's a tandem bicycle. And there's like 19 kids riding the bicycle. School-age kids, one of those long bikes. And they swerve. They go, we're going to get you. They swerve into your lane. You're about to crash into them. But also, you got two options, okay? One option is to steer left into a median, which will kill you, but it'll preserve the children. One option is to hit the children. You might even step on the accelerator a little harder. Butt bombs. The third option is there's a completely innocent pedestrian walking by you on the sidewalk. They had nothing to do with it, but if you swerve to the right, you will save your life as the driver. You'll save the life of those, 10 children who are on the bicycle. But you'll probably take the life of the person that's just minding their own business walking on the sidewalk. In that weird trolley problem, what do you think is the best outcome? And I'm going to caution you, because I know how internet Melvining works. You're going to be like, well, no algorithm could ever do that. It's the amount of processing time it would require. And, like, what kind of crazy road is this where that situation would ever come to pass? It doesn't even make any sense. And no, just answer the question, Poindexter. The point of this is not to figure out, the technical problems with the fantasy situation I've created. How would Boromir's horn ever possibly be heard so far away that the Sundered Fellowship could even make it back to the... It's not like that, okay? It's a question of both morality and logistics. I think I can make the case here that it's all kind of unfair. Why should the driver be punished for... a driving mistake of somebody else. In this case, the 10 children that are driving the tandem bicycle on the road. The driver, in a just and fair world, would not be punished for that. And the other wrinkle there is, do you really want people, you're going to buy a self-driving car and you're going to have to sign on the dotted line that's like, yes, I understand the car may choose to kill me. No thanks, I'll keep driving the Focus, right? So that's one option. However... The pedestrian is completely safe. They're doing their own business. Should they be the person that's punished just because it may cause the least amount of harm to people who are not the driver? That doesn't really seem fair. But at the other hand, so you're gonna barrel head first into the tandem bicycle with 8 kids on it just because the person that was on the handlebars made a mistake? They're all kind of unfair. I guess it's just about finding the least unfair option. I don't know, man. I guess as the driver, I would say you just kind of eat it there. I wouldn't be happy about it, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm stoked, I'm saving the kids. Like, again, when I became a ghost, I've been saying this in Fall Guys a lot. If I became a ghost, I would haunt those children, or at least the person that was steering the handlebars. Because it's not fair. Why should I have to die because of your idiocy? On the other hand, you know, the 7 kids behind you, maybe they share some of the blame because they were still pedaling. You know, I don't know, they could have dove off or dived off or maybe done like a little, like a skirt or something like that, but, you know, I guess in some ways I do have that utilitarian sort of mindset. It's an interesting question, though. Let's just start with, you know, actually having the, you know, we're putting the cart before the horse. Let's wait until we get, you know, some self-driving that actually is capable of driving itself before we worry about making those sorts of decisions. By the way, we are going to be keeping the red candle here, but it's an interesting choice for sure. Regardless. I'm just saying, like, self-driving cars, they create all sorts of interesting hypothetical situations that I think have, like, legal ramifications. I guess what's the purpose of the law? Is the purpose of the law to punish those who do acts that are unacceptable, or is the purpose of the law to present, like, a stick, you know, that punishes, that discourages people from doing those behaviors in the first place? If it's to punish people who have done wrong, then I do feel like there should be a different severity of offense for driving drunk versus, you know, being a passenger in a self-drive vehicle while intoxicated. If it's meant to be a stick to discourage people from doing it, I can understand why you would make them the same offense. Or at the same level. It's just that I'm not really taking a side either way. It's kind of outside of my purview. It's like the thing I always chide YouTubers for is like, I got famous for playing Destiny. Here's my thoughts on the nature of the philosophy of for-profit prisons. I'm like, dude, don't get me wrong. It's within your purview to have opinions and also to have some influence on your audience with those opinions. It's a natural instinct, I think. But also, I'm like, you know, there's people that like went to school for this that I could listen to. I could read their, you know, bachelor's thesis or their PhD thesis, etc., etc. You're the Destiny guy. If I need to know, you know, how to get heroic mythics, you're who I'm going to come to. If I want to read a nuanced take on, you know, the philosophy of for-profit prisons, I'm going to seek that out. But I guess then the flip side of that is that a lot of people would never be aware of it as an issue in the first place. So you get to get that, like, kind of cross-pollination of important issues. You know, okay, you know, I've talked myself out of it. Keep doing what you're doing, Destiny. Mr. Destiny. Mr. Path of Exile. I mean, I think I've said it before, but I don't really care what, like, any other YouTuber does with their platform. All I ask is that stop, like, pooping your own pants so that I get asked about it constantly. Hey, NL, what do you think about what this YouTuber said about sucralose and aspartame? I just... Come on, man. I just want to grill. That kind of stuff's for the private Discord conversations between Robert and myself. It's not for you. It's not for the eyes of the audience. Let me out. By the way, get ready to be annoyed, because even with Tech X, we're going to do like heavy orbital action here, because our damage is not particularly fantastic. I don't mind losing the Bone Heart. I don't mind losing the Demon Heart. Anyway, I'm just saying, the self-driving car thing, it creates an interesting situation. Certainly not at that level. I think I mentioned, but like our brother-in-law got a Tesla Model 3 and he was showing off like the autopilot. And it was amazing on like a straight road. And then we came to a bend in the road and it drove as if it was a straight road. And then we were about a third of the way through the bend. It violently jerked the wheel to try to like stay in the lines. And I was like, I get it. You know, the sensor, it doesn't have the same, like, visibility that the human eye has, where you can look 400 meters ahead and be like, we're going to start to prepare for this turn. You know, instead it's like, 40 degrees, you know? But at the same time, it felt like it was not quite there yet. So we probably don't have to worry about banal minutia, like, you know, will it or won't it count as impaired driving? Let's wait until they can, like, turn left at night first. But after that, oh, baby. Vacation, all I've ever wanted. I was saying this the other day, and I know, look, there's an endless font of things you can be mad about, especially if you don't listen to what somebody means, and instead you're just, like, trying to, like, take what they say out of context in the most bad faith way possible. So let me say something, okay? I recognize that the gig economy sucks. You know, it's gonna sound busted, like, you know, me too, fellow gig workers. But I am, like, for every company with which I interface with on an employment level, I'm an independent contractor, right? So I understand, like, you know, you don't really get benefits unless the company chooses to provide benefits. You know, you're not considered an employee for tax purposes, so you handle, like, all your own tax stuff. You know, any expenses that you incur fall to you and you alone because, you know, you're kind of like a subcontractor, right? So I understand the negatives. If I was set for life, I honestly think, like, I think I would be one of those, like, 60-year-old guys who just drives either... Honestly, I don't think I would drive Uber because I don't want people to throw up in my car. But I think I could be one of those 60-year-old guys who does, like, Uber Eats. Just to kind of, like, make a little pocket money and also keep myself busy. It just kind of, like, I'm not saying it's fun. Like, I think if you have to rely on it for a living, it's probably insanely stressful and annoying, and dealing with customers is really frustrating, I'm sure. But I feel like if you're doing it for sport and just to kind of, like, keep your mind active and stay busy, I feel like I could actually find a great deal of fulfillment in being an Uber Eats driver. I'm definitely not saying that those in the gig economy should stop complaining. Like, I still don't really understand why when you order from Uber Eats, the driver might get, like, you know, a $4 tip. It's up to your discretion, but, you know, let's say you get, like, a $12 order. The driver gets a $4 tip, and Uber Eats gets, like, a $4 surcharge. What did Uber Eats do? They own the domain? You didn't do it. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't get a fee, but $4? I don't buy it. You haven't earned it, in my opinion. That being said, sometimes, you know, convenience wins out. I'm just saying, like, because I was in Apollo's chat, and we were talking about, like, delivery drivers, and I was like, man, I feel like, honestly, if being a pizza delivery driver paid, like, a staggering amount of money, like, let's say you made, you know, 6 figures for being a pizza delivery driver, it would be the greatest job on earth, right? Next to, like, I don't know, chocolate taster. Like, hear me out here. You get to drive around. That's pretty fun. You get to make people's nights by delivering them pizzas, and then they open their door and they're all having, like, cool parties and stuff. And your car smells like pizza all the time. And then people were like, you know, but your car would smell like pizza, but you couldn't eat it. Why not? You can't eat their pizza, but it's not like it's illegal to eat pizza if you're a pizza delivery driver. Just take a slice with you from the pizzeria. Like, you know, buy a slice out of pocket and eat it. Plus, you probably get sick of the pizza eventually anyway. I really think in terms of the duties of doing the job, like, being a pizza delivery driver is just kind of like a good-smelling Death Stranding. Anyway, for now, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya!